Can I sit here? In a quiet coffee shop, a frail little girl's question pierced the heart of a widowed millionaire CEO, haunted by loss. Their chance encounter sparked an unexpected bond, forever changing their lives. Before diving into this heartfelt tale, share where you're tuning in from in the comments and rate this touching journey from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy. The aroma of freshly ground coffee beans mingled with the faint scent of cinnamon pastries, wrapping the small cafe in a comforting haze. Outside, the city buzzed with the relentless rhythm of morning commuters. But inside, time seemed to slow. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers, a gentle counterpoint to the clink of cups and murmured conversations. At a corner table by the window, Kieran Hayes sat alone, his untouched latte cooling in front of him. At 35, with his sharp jawline, piercing blue eyes and perfectly styled blonde hair, he cut an imposing figure in his tailored charcoal suit. As the CEO of a sprawling tech empire, he commanded boardrooms with calculated precision, turning innovations into billions. Yet, beneath that unyielding exterior, lay a man fractured by loss, a widower who had learned to armor his heart against the world. 3 years had passed since the double blow that shattered him. First, his wife Sophia, vibrant and full of life, succumbed to the relentless grip of ovarian cancer. She had fought with a quiet ferocity, her hand in his until the end, whispering promises of forever that fate cruelly broke. Then, scarcely a year later, their son Noah, barely 5, with the same blonde curls and infectious laugh, was taken in a senseless car accident while Kieran was away on business. The call came in the dead of night, ripping through him like a blade. He hadn't even said goodbye. Since then, Kieran had buried himself in work, filling endless days with mergers, algorithms, and empty victories. Emotions were liabilities. Vulnerability, a weakness he couldn't afford. He sipped his coffee now, not for pleasure, but for routine, staring out at the gray skyline as if it held answers to questions he no longer dared ask. A small voice shattered the solitude. "Excuse me, mister, can I sit here? I'm really tired." Kieran blinked, pulling his gaze from the window. Standing beside his table was a little girl, no more than 4 years old, her frame fragile and bird-like. She clutched a worn stuffed rabbit to her chest, its fur matted from countless hugs. A knitted cap pulled low over her head concealed what he suspected was a bald scalp, and her skin was pallid, almost translucent under the cafe's warm lights. But it was her eyes, large, glassy, and brimming with an exhaustion that belied her age, that struck him like a thunderbolt. They were mirrors to his past, echoing the vulnerability he had seen in Noah's gaze during those final hospital visits, when his son had looked up and asked, "Daddy, will it hurt today?" For a moment, Kieran froze, his breath catching in his throat. No one approached him like this, not in his world of guarded interactions and calculated distances. Strangers sensed the invisible barrier he projected, the aura of untouchability that came with wealth and grief. Yet here was this child, unfiltered and unafraid, her tiny hand gripping the table's edge for support. Something stirred within him, a crack in the fortress he had built. He nodded slowly, his voice emerging softer than he intended. "Of course. Go ahead." With deliberate care, he slid the chair out for her, noticing how her legs trembled slightly as she climbed up. Her feet dangled far from the floor, swinging like pendulums. She settled her rabbit on the table and patted its head affectionately. "This is Whiskers," she said, her voice a whispery melody. "He's tired too, but he says it's okay to rest here." Kieran watched her, mesmerized. He reached for his wool scarf, draped over the back of his chair, and gently wrapped it around her narrow shoulders. The fabric dwarfed her, but she didn't flinch. Instead, a faint smile tugged at her lips, innocent and trusting. It was a smile that pierced him deeper than any boardroom negotiation ever could. Memories flooded back unbidden. Noah bundled in a blanket during winter outings, his laughter echoing as they built snowmen in the park. Kieran swallowed hard, forcing the images away. Who was this girl? And why did she feel like a ghost from his shattered life? Before he could speak, a woman hurried over from the counter, her blonde hair tied back in a hasty ponytail, her face etched with worry. She carried a tray with a hot chocolate and a muffin, her movements efficient but weary. "Amelia! Oh, sweetie, you can't just wander off like that," she said, her voice laced with panic. She set the tray down and scooped the girl into her arms, glancing at Kieran with wide eyes. "I'm so sorry, sir. She didn't mean to bother you. She's not feeling well today." Kieran raised a hand, not dismissively, but with a gentleness that surprised even him. "It's no bother at all. She's quite the conversationalist." He met the woman's gaze, Isabella Grant, though he didn't know her name yet, and saw the exhaustion mirrored there, the kind that came from endless nights of vigilance. Her clothes were practical but worn, a simple sweater, and jeans that spoke of a life stretched thin. Yet, there was a quiet strength in her posture, a protectiveness that enveloped the child like a shield. Amelia, now he knew her name, waved a small hand from her mother's arms. "Bye-bye, mister. Thanks for the scarf." Isabella hesitated, her eyes flicking to the luxurious scarf now draped over her daughter. "Thank you," she murmured, genuine but guarded. "We'll get out of your way." She turned and headed for the door, holding Amelia close, as if the world outside might swallow them whole. Kieran watched them go, the bell above the door tinkling like a final note in a forgotten melody. The cafe returned to its hum, but for him, the air felt charged, heavier. He remained seated long after, his latte forgotten. The encounter replayed in his mind. The girl's weary eyes, her simple request, the way she had pierced his isolation without effort. For 3 years, he had mastered indifference, convincing himself that love and loss were relics of a past life. But today, a child had asked to sit, and in that moment, a seed of hope had been planted. It was faint, fragile, like the first crack of dawn after an endless night. Kieran Hayes, the unbreakable CEO, felt the stirrings of something he thought long dead. The possibility of connection in a world that had taken everything from him. Little did he know, this was only the beginning. The days following that unexpected encounter blurred into a haze for Kieran Hayes. He found himself replaying the scene in his mind during late-night meetings and solitary drives through the city. The little girl's weary plea, her trusting smile as she accepted his scarf, the protective way her mother had whisked her away. It was absurd, really. A fleeting moment in a coffee shop shouldn't linger like this. Yet it did, gnawing at the edges of his carefully constructed indifference. By the weekend, unable to shake the restlessness, Kieran decided on a walk in the nearby park. It was a place he had avoided for years, a sanctuary turned graveyard of memories. But today, the pull was inexplicable, as if some invisible thread tugged him toward it. The park unfolded under a crisp autumn sky, leaves crunching beneath his polished shoes like brittle echoes of the past. Bare trees stretched skeletal branches toward a pale sun, and the air carried the faint chill of impending winter. Families dotted the paths, children chasing pigeons, parents laughing over thermoses of cocoa. Kieran wandered aimlessly at first, his hands thrust into his coat pockets, his breath visible in small clouds. This had once been his haven with Sophia and Noah. He could almost hear their voices, Sophia's melodic laughter as she pushed Noah on the swings, the boys' gleeful shouts of, "Higher, Daddy!" They had come here on lazy Sundays, feeding ducks by the pond, building forts from fallen branches. Those days felt like another lifetime, stolen by fate's cruel hand. Sophia's cancer had come swiftly, a shadow that darkened their world. She had fought with grace, her hand in his during endless chemo sessions, but in the end, it claimed her. Then Noah, his little anchor, gone in a screech of tires on a rainy afternoon, while Kieran was halfway across the ocean, closing a deal. The guilt had been a constant companion since, whispering that he should have been there, that his empire meant nothing without them. He paused by a weathered bench overlooking the playground, the merry-go-round spinning lazily with a group of kids. That's when he saw her, Amelia, twirling gently on the edge, her knitted cap slipping sideways, cheeks flushed from the cold. She clutched Whiskers in one hand, the other outstretched like makeshift wings. Kieran's heart stuttered. It was her, the girl from the cafe, radiating a fragile joy that cut through the autumn gloom. A few feet away sat her mother, Isabella, perched on another bench with a worn paperback in her lap, though her eyes never strayed from her daughter. She looked even more exhausted in the daylight, shadows under her eyes speaking of sleepless nights, but there was a quiet resilience in her posture, like a willow bending but never breaking. Amelia spotted him first, her face lighting up like a dawn breaking. She hopped off the merry-go-round and dashed toward him with surprising energy, her small boots kicking up leaves. "Scarf man!" she exclaimed, flinging her arms around his leg in an unreserved hug. Kieran knelt instinctively, a chuckle escaping him despite himself. "Well, hello again, little one. Fancy meeting you here." The words felt foreign on his tongue. Light, almost playful, but they flowed naturally. Amelia beamed up at him, tugging at his coat. "Whiskers says hi too. Want to spin with me?" Isabella approached then, her steps cautious, book clutched like a shield. "Amelia, sweetie, don't bother the nice man again." Her voice held a mix of embarrassment and wariness, but when she met Kieran's eyes, recognition flickered. "You, from the coffee shop. I didn't expect to see you here." Kieran straightened, offering a small smile. "The park has a way of surprising us. I'm Kieran, by the way. Kieran Hayes." He extended a hand, and after a brief hesitation, she shook it, her grip firm, calloused from hard work. "Isabella Grant, and you've already met Amelia. She's quite the escape artist." They settled on the bench, Amelia insisting on sitting between them, swinging her legs and humming a tuneless song. The conversation started tentatively, small talk about the weather, the park's changing seasons, but soon deepened. Isabella glanced at her daughter, who was now chasing a fluttering leaf. "She's got more energy than I do some days, but it's been tough. Leukemia, diagnosed a year ago. The treatments are endless, chemo, doctors, bills that never stop piling up." Her voice cracked slightly, but she steadied it, eyes fixed on Amelia. "I used to dream of teaching kindergarten, studied early childhood education, but then life happened. Her father left before she was even born. Now it's just us, scraping by with cleaning jobs and waitressing shifts." Kieran's throat tightened, the parallels hitting him like waves. He watched Amelia, her laughter ringing out as she spun in circles, and the dam inside him cracked. "She's a fighter," he said softly. "Reminds me of someone I knew." Isabella turned to him, curiosity softening her guard. Encouraged, he continued, the words spilling out for the first time in years. "I had a son, Noah. He'd be about her age now. Blonde curls, just like hers. And my wife, Sophia. She battled ovarian cancer, fought like hell, but it took her 3 years ago. Then Noah, a car accident. I was in London on business. One call, and everything was gone." His voice wavered, fists clenching in his lap. The admission hung in the air, raw and exposed, a vulnerability he hadn't allowed since the funerals. Isabella's hand rested lightly on his arm, a gesture of shared sorrow. "I'm so sorry. That kind of loss, it changes you." They sat in companionable silence, watching Amelia return with a handful of colorful leaves, presenting them like treasures. "For you, Scarf Man," she declared, dropping them into Kieran's lap. He laughed, a genuine, freeing sound, and helped her arrange them into a makeshift crown. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden hues over the park, Isabella gathered Amelia to leave. "We should get going, but thank you for sharing. It's rare to find someone who understands," Kieran nodded, standing with them. "Maybe we'll run into each other again. At the coffee shop, perhaps?" Isabella smiled faintly, a spark of warmth in her eyes. "Maybe." As they walked away, mother and daughter hand in hand, Kieran lingered on the bench, the leaves still clutched in his palm. For the first time since his world crumbled, the memories didn't drown him. They whispered of possibility. The park, once a tomb of grief, now held a glimmer of light. And as he headed home, the invisible thread pulled tighter, hinting that fate wasn't done with him yet. The promise of maybe echoed in Kieran's mind like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. That following Monday, he found himself altering his meticulously planned schedule, arriving at the coffee shop earlier than usual. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, the familiar aroma of brewing espresso wrapping around him like an old friend. He claimed the window table, ordering his latte with an uncharacteristic addition. A small muffin dotted with blueberries, something whimsical that reminded him of Noah's favorite treats. As minutes ticked by, doubt crept in. What if they didn't show? What if that park encounter had been a fluke? A momentary crack in his isolation that fate would swiftly seal. But then the door swung open, admitting a gust of cool air, and the duo he hadn't realized he'd been yearning to see. Amelia toddled in first, her hand clasped in Isabella's, whiskers dangling from her free arm. Her eyes lit up upon spotting him, and she broke free, dashing toward the table with a squeal. "Scarf Man, you're here!" Kieran knelt to her level, his heart twisting at her unbridled joy. "I am, little explorer, and look what I brought." He slid the muffin toward her, watching her face transform with delight. Isabella approached more slowly, a tentative smile playing on her lips. "You really came back," she said, settling Amelia into the chair opposite him before pulling up her own. "I wasn't sure." From that morning onward, the coffee shop became their unspoken ritual. Kieran adjusted his empire's demands to carve out this sacred hour, arriving promptly at 9 a.m., his presence as reliable as the rising sun. The first few visits were tentative, laced with polite exchanges about the weather, or Amelia's latest adventures with Whiskers. But gradually, barriers dissolved like sugar in hot coffee. He began bringing small tokens, a colorful storybook about brave rabbits one day, a soft blanket embroidered with stars the next. Amelia devoured them, her laughter bubbling forth as Kieran read aloud in a voice that grew warmer with each page. "Again!" she'd demand, climbing onto his lap without hesitation, her tiny frame nestling against him as if he'd always been there. Isabella watched these interactions with a mix of awe and caution, her initial wariness eroding under the weight of genuine kindness. She opened up in fragments, sharing snippets of her life during lulls when Amelia dozed against her shoulder. "I always wanted to teach," she confessed, one rainy morning, stirring her tea absent-mindedly. "Shape young minds, you know. But after Amelia, priorities shift. Now it's about survival. Cleaning offices at dawn, waitressing till my feet scream." Kieran listened without judgment, his nods encouraging her onward. In return, he shared guarded pieces of his own mosaic, tales of building his tech company from a garage dream, the hollow victories that filled his days, but not his soul. "Work keeps the ghosts at bay," he admitted once, his eyes distant. Yet with them, the ghosts seemed less oppressive, their whispers drowned by Amelia's giggles. As weeks unfolded, The trio wove a delicate tapestry of connection. On brighter days, Amelia would twirl beside the table, her knitted cap slipping, as she sang off-key tunes to Whiskers, declaring him the best dancer ever. Kieran joined in, his usually stoic features cracking into grins as he taught her simple games, stacking sugar packets into towers, or drawing faces on napkins. Isabella's laughter joined theirs, light and freeing, as if these moments were breaths of fresh air in her suffocating routine. She began sitting closer, no longer at a separate table, her conversations with Kieran deepening. They spoke of dreams deferred, her unfinished degree, his unspoken regret over prioritizing deals over family time. "You're good with her," she observed one afternoon, as Amelia napped with her head on his arm. "Like you've done this before." Kieran's throat tightened, but he nodded. "I have. And I miss it more than I can say." The bond grew subtly, like roots seeking soil in cracked earth. Kieran found himself anticipating these mornings, the emptiness of his penthouse fading against the warmth of their company. He noticed the small things, the way Isabella's eyes lit when Amelia ate heartily, or how the child's energy waxed and waned with her treatments. One crisp day, he arrived with a plush teddy bear dressed as a doctor, complete with a toy stethoscope. "For the tough days," he explained, crouching to Amelia's eye level. "Dr. Whisker's new friend." The girl squealed, hugging it tight, while Isabella's gaze softened further. "That's incredibly thoughtful," she murmured, her voice thick with unspoken gratitude. Yet beneath the warmth lurked the shadow of Amelia's illness, a constant undercurrent that Kieran couldn't ignore. Her good days were vibrant bursts of life, but the bad ones arrived unannounced, leaving her listless and pale. On those mornings, she'd curl in Isabella's lap, sipping juice through a straw, while Kieran distracted her with quiet stories. The routine fortified them all, a fragile armor against the world's cruelties. Isabella's barriers crumbled entirely, one foggy dawn when she arrived disheveled, admitting a rough night at the hospital. "Chemo again," she whispered, tears brimming. Kieran reached across the table, his hand covering hers in silent solidarity. "You're not alone in this," he said, the words carrying the weight of his own buried pains. But fate, ever capricious, chose a bitter morning to test their budding haven. The air was thick with frost, the coffee shop's windows fogged from the inside. Kieran arrived early, as always, with a fresh batch of Amelia's favorite muffins. They entered moments later, Amelia's steps slower than usual, her face unusually flushed. She climbed into her chair, accepting the treat with a weak smile. Midway through a bite, she paused, her small body shuddering. "Mommy, hot," she whimpered, before slumping forward, a sudden fever seizing her. Isabella gasped, scooping her up as panic etched her features. Kieran was on his feet in an instant, his voice steady amid the chaos. "I'll drive. Hospital. Now." As they rushed out into the biting cold, the warmth of those mornings hung in the balance, a prelude to the storm ahead. The biting cold slapped against them like a merciless hand as they burst from the coffee shop into the snow-dusted street. Kieran led the way, his black SUV parked just around the corner, a sleek machine that now felt like a lifeline. Isabella clutched Amelia tightly, the child's limp body hot against her chest, her breaths shallow and ragged. "She's burning up," Isabella whispered, voice cracking with terror. Kieran unlocked the doors with a beep, helping her buckle Amelia into the back seat before sliding behind the wheel. The engine roared to life, tires screeching as he pulled into traffic, weaving through the morning rush with a focus honed from years of high-stakes decisions. Horns blared, but he ignored them, his jaw set, eyes fixed on the road. "Hold on," he said, glancing in the rearview mirror where Isabella stroked her daughter's forehead, murmuring soothing words that masked her own panic. The hospital loomed ahead, a monolithic structure of glass and steel, its emergency entrance a beacon amid the chaos. Kieran screeched to a halt at the doors, leaping out to flag down nurses. "Fever! Sudden onset! She's got leukemia!" he barked, his CEO authority cutting through the bureaucracy like a knife. Medics swarmed, wheeling Amelia inside on a gurney, Isabella trailing behind, her hand never leaving her daughter's. Kieran followed, the sterile scent of antiseptic assaulting him, triggering flashes of his own nightmares. Sophia's final days, tubes snaking across her frail form. Noah's tiny body in the ER after the crash. He pushed the memories down, focusing on the present. This time, he was here. This time, he could act. In the waiting room, time stretched into an agonizing limbo. Isabella paced, her blonde hair disheveled, tears carving silent paths down her cheeks. "This came out of nowhere," she said, collapsing into a plastic chair beside him. "She was fine yesterday, laughing, playing. Why now?" Kieran sat close, his presence a steady anchor. "Kids are resilient. We'll get through this." But his words felt hollow even to him. He knew the fragility of hope in these halls. Hours blurred as doctors emerged sporadically with updates. Blood tests confirmed a severe infection, a brutal side effect of her ongoing chemotherapy. "We need to start radiation immediately," the oncologist explained, his tone grave. "It's aggressive but necessary to target the compromised cells. The cost? Well, it's substantial, but we can't delay." Isabella's face paled further, the weight of financial ruin crashing down alongside her fear. She nodded numbly, signing forms with trembling hands. Kieran watched, his mind racing. He could cover it. His wealth made such burdens trivial. But he held back, sensing her pride, her need to stand on her own. Instead, he stayed, fetching coffee that went untouched, holding her when sobs racked her body. As night fell, they moved to Amelia's room, the beeps of monitors a relentless symphony. The girl lay pale against the sheets, IV lines threading into her arms like invasive vines. Radiation began the next dawn, a grueling session in a cold chamber where Amelia, sedated but aware, whimpered through the mask. Isabella pressed her forehead to the observation window, whispering encouragements. "You're my brave girl. Mommy's here." Kieran didn't leave. He canceled meetings, silenced his phone, transforming from distant tycoon to unwavering sentinel. Days merged into a haze of sterile routines. Nurses adjusting drips, doctors charting progress, Amelia's small frame enduring the onslaught. The radiation burned, not just her body, but their spirits. Side effects hit hard. Nausea that left her retching into basins, fatigue that sapped her spark, skin reddening like a fresh wound. One midnight, as Isabella dozed in the recliner, Amelia stirred, her voice a feeble thread. "Scarf man? Story?" Kieran leaned in, his heart aching at her sunken eyes. He pulled a chair close, improvising a tale about Whiskers the rabbit adventuring through a stormy forest, finding shelter with new friends. Amelia's lips curved faintly, her hand slipping into his. "Whiskers wins," she murmured before drifting off. In that quiet vigil, Kieran felt the ghosts of his past recede. Here was purpose, raw and real. Isabella awoke to the scene, her expression softening amid the exhaustion. "You don't have to do this," she said later, as they shared vending machine sandwiches in the hall. "Your life. It's big, important." Kieran met her gaze, vulnerability flickering. "This is important. After losing Sophia and Noah, I learned that boardrooms don't hold families together. Being here does." She nodded, a tentative bridge forming between their shared scars. Together, they fortified Amelia. Isabella with lullabies and gentle baths. Kieran with distractions. Puzzles smuggled in. Videos of dancing animals on his tablet. The child's resilience shone through. Even on the worst days, she'd muster a giggle at Kieran's silly faces or clutch Whiskers tighter, declaring him her storm buddy. Weeks dragged, the radiation cycle a relentless battle. Costs mounted, meds, scans, specialist consults, each bill a dagger to Isabella's resolve. She juggled calls to her jobs, begging for extensions, her voice fraying. Kieran ached to intervene, but respected her silence on the matter. Instead, he channeled his energy into support, arranging meal deliveries, coordinating with his assistant for flexible hours so he could stay. One storm-lashed evening, as rain hammered the windows, Amelia's fever broke. Tests showed the infection retreating, cells responding to the barrage. "She's turning the corner," the doctor announced, relief etching his features. Isabella wept openly, collapsing into Kieran's arms. A hug born of gratitude and exhaustion, his steady embrace absorbing her tremors. Amelia's recovery accelerated, fueled by their unyielding presence. Color returned to her cheeks. Her laughter, though weak, echoed in the room. By the end of the cycle, she sat up, demanding ice cream medicine, with a spark that belied her ordeal. Discharge day arrived like a dawn after endless night. Isabella packed their things, hugging nurses farewell, while Kieran carried Amelia to the car, her head on his shoulder. "You fought like a warrior, princess," he whispered. As they drove away from the hospital's shadow, the city lights blurring past, a fragile peace settled. But in Isabella's hands was the final discharge packet, its contents a ticking bomb she hadn't yet opened. The storm had passed, but its aftermath loomed, ready to test the bonds they'd forged in the fire. The drive from the hospital wove through the city's veins like a vein of fragile hope. The SUV's hum, a soothing counterpoint to the exhaustion etched on their faces. Kieran gripped the wheel, stealing glances at Isabella in the passenger seat, her hand resting protectively on Amelia's knee in the back. The child, bundled in blankets, dozed with Whiskers clutched to her chest, her breathing steady for the first time in weeks. "She's going to be okay," Kieran said softly, more to reassure himself than her. Isabella nodded, a weary smile breaking through. "Thanks to you. I don't know how we would have managed without—" Her voice trailed off, gratitude mingling with the unspoken weight of their shared vigil. The radiation had been a tempest, but they'd weathered it together. Nights of holding hands through tears, mornings of forced optimism over cafeteria coffee. Now, as the skyline gave way to quieter streets, a tentative peace settled, like sunlight piercing storm clouds. They arrived at Isabella's modest apartment building, a weathered brick structure squeezed between towering condos. Kieran carried Amelia inside, her weight feather-light in his arms, while Isabella unlocked the door. The space was small but warm, faded curtains filtering afternoon light, toys scattered like remnants of normalcy. He laid the girl on her bed, tucking Whiskers beside her, and lingered a moment, watching her chest rise and fall. "Get some rest," he told Isabella, who hovered in the doorway. "I'll check in tomorrow." She hugged him briefly, the embrace lingering longer than before, charged with unspoken depths. As he left, the door clicking shut behind him, Kieran felt a shift, a sense that these moments had woven him into their lives, irrevocably. For Isabella, the relief was short-lived. Alone in the quiet apartment, she sank onto the couch and opened the discharge packet, expecting the familiar dread of mounting debt. Forms fluttered out, test results, follow-up schedules, and then the bill summary. Her breath hitched. Balance, 0.00 hours. Paid in full by anonymous donor. The words blurred as rage ignited, hot and swift. Anonymous? She knew exactly who it was. Kieran's face flashed in her mind, his steady presence during the crisis, his quiet competence. But this was overstepping, a reminder that his world of wealth could eclipse her struggles with a single check. Pride warred with humiliation, She'd fought tooth and nail to keep them afloat, scraping by on dignity alone. Now it felt like charity, like she was a project to be fixed. By evening, fury propelled her out the door, leaving Amelia with a trusted neighbor. She hailed a cab to the gleaming tower that housed Kieran's empire, the structure piercing the night sky like a monolith of power. Security eyed her worn coat suspiciously, but she demanded entry, her voice steel-edged. "Tell him Isabella Grant is here. He'll see me." Minutes later, the elevator whisked her to the penthouse offices, where polished marble floors reflected her disheveled reflection. Kieran looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his features as she stormed in. "Isabella? Is everything all right? Amelia?" "You paid the bills," she cut in, slamming the packet down. "Behind my back. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" Her words echoed in the vast room, lined with awards and screens displaying global markets. Kieran stood slowly, his blonde hair catching the lamplight, his expression shifting from concern to regret. "I was going to tell you. I didn't want to add to your stress during—" "Stress?" She laughed bitterly, pacing like a caged animal. "I've handled stress my whole life, alone. Cleaning toilets at 3 a.m., begging for extensions on rent, watching my daughter fight for her life. And you swoop in with your money like it's that simple." Kieran's jaw tightened, but his voice remained measured. "It wasn't about pity. After what happened to Sophia and Noah, I couldn't just stand by, watching Amelia suffer, knowing I could help. It was something I could do. For once." Isabella faltered, his vulnerability piercing her armor. She saw the pain in his eyes, the ghosts he carried, but it only fueled her fire. "You crossed a line, Kieran. We're not your redemption story." She turned on her heel, the door slamming like a final punctuation. Back home, she blocked his number, deleted his messages. The apartment feeling smaller, colder. Days blurred into avoidance. She skipped the coffee shop, opting for hurried breakfast at home, telling Amelia, "Scarf Man is busy." But the wound festered, amplified when her phone buzzed with a link from a coworker. A tabloid headline screaming, "Billionaire CEO plays hero to sick child. Charity or image rehab." Photos splashed across the screen. Kieran holding Amelia in the park, their coffee shop moments captured covertly. Speculation swirled. Was it a PR stunt? A widower seeking sympathy? Humiliation burned anew. Had it all been calculated? The gifts, the stories, the support, mere optics for his tarnished reputation. That night, she cried into her pillow, doubt poisoning the trust they'd built. Kieran, meanwhile, stared at his empty screen, the article mocking him from his desk. He hadn't leaked it. Paparazzi had sniffed out the story like sharks to blood. But the damage was done. He showed up at the coffee shop the next morning, the window table mocking his solitude. No Amelia's laughter, no Isabella's quiet strength. Days turned to a hollow routine, his empire's demands feeling emptier than ever. Amelia, sensing the void, grew restless. "Where's Scarf Man?" she'd ask, her eyes wide with confusion. Isabella brushed it off, but the girl's longing simmered. One crisp evening, as Isabella unloaded groceries in the kitchen, Amelia slipped Whiskers under her arm and clutched a crayon-scrawled note. "Come back." The front door creaked open unnoticed, her small figure vanishing into the twilight, driven by a child's unyielding heart toward the one place she knew he might be. Panic would come soon, but for now, the boundary Kieran had shattered set the stage for a desperate reunion. The twilight draped the city in a veil of indigo shadows, streetlights flickering to life like hesitant guardians. Amelia, small and determined, slipped down the apartment stairs, her pink boots scuffing softly against the worn concrete. Whiskers dangled from one hand, the crayon note crumpled in the other. A child's plea scrawled in wobbly letters. "Come back, Scarf Man." She didn't fully grasp the storm brewing between the adults. She only knew the ache of absence, the way mornings felt dimmer without his stories and smiles. The coffee shop wasn't far, her memory insisted. A place of warmth and muffins, where magic had begun. The evening air nipped at her cheeks, but resolve propelled her forward, past buzzing neon signs and hurried pedestrians who barely noticed the tiny figure weaving through the dusk. Back in the apartment, Isabella hummed absent-mindedly, while sorting groceries, the fridge door creaking open and shut. The silence struck her first, an unnatural hush, where Amelia's chatter should have filled the air. "Sweetie, where are you hiding?" she called, peeking into the bedroom. Empty. The living room yielded nothing but scattered toys. Panic ignited like a spark on dry tinder, her heart slamming against her ribs. The front door, ajar, just a sliver. "Amelia!" The name tore from her throat as she bolted into the hallway, scanning the stairs, the lobby. Neighbors poked heads out, but no one had seen the girl. Isabella's mind raced to horrors. Traffic, strangers, the fragility of her daughter's health post-radiation. Tears blurred her vision as she fumbled for her phone, fingers trembling over the blocked contact. Pride crumbled under terror's weight. She unblocked Kieran and dialed, the ring echoing like a lifeline in the void. Kieran's penthouse echoed with emptiness, the city skyline a glittering mockery through floor-to-ceiling windows. He paced his study, the tabloid article discarded on his desk like a venomous snake. Days of silence had carved hollows under his eyes, regret gnawing at him. The phone buzzed, Isabella's name flashing, an unexpected jolt. He answered instantly. "Isabella, what's—" Her voice shattered through, fractured and frantic. "She's gone. Amelia, she slipped out. I think she's looking for you. The coffee shop, maybe." "Oh God, Kieran, it's getting dark." His blood turned to ice. Memories of Noah's accident flashing like lightning. Loss's cruel echo. "Stay put. Lock the door. I'm coming." He grabbed his keys, coat forgotten, and sprinted to the elevator, the descent an eternity. Outside, he hailed a cab, barking directions to the coffee shop. "Fast as you can." The city blurred past, his mind a whirlwind of worst-case scenarios. A child alone in the urban jungle, vulnerable and innocent. The cab screeched to a halt outside the familiar cafe, its windows glowing warmly against the encroaching night. Kieran thrust bills at the driver and dashed out, scanning the sidewalk. Empty benches, couples strolling arm in arm, no sign. His pulse thundered as he pushed inside, the bell jingling mockingly. The barista looked up. "Sir, we're closing soon." "A little girl, blonde with a stuffed rabbit. Have you seen her?" The shake of the head sent dread spiraling. Outside again, he ran toward the park, the path they'd walked so many times. Streetlights cast elongated shadows, the wind whispering taunts. "Amelia!" he shouted, voice raw. Passers-by stared, but he didn't care. His empire, his composure, all irrelevant in this desperate hunt. Isabella couldn't stay still. She grabbed her jacket and bolted from the apartment, legs pumping as she retraced possible routes. The streets felt hostile, every alley a threat, every honk a harbinger. "Amelia, baby, where are you?" Her cries drew concerned glances, but no answers. Regret flooded her, blocking him, pushing him away when he'd only tried to help. The tabloid's poison seemed trivial now, a foolish barrier against what mattered, the family they'd unwittingly formed. She turned toward the park, hope flickering dimly. That's when her phone vibrated. Kieran's text. "Heading to the park. Call police if I'm not back in 10. But she pressed on, unwilling to wait in helplessness. In the park, the merry-go-round creaked forlornly in the breeze, bare trees silhouetted like sentinels. Kieran sprinted along the paths, breath ragged, calling her name until his throat burned. Then, a small figure on their old bench, boots dangling, whiskers in lap. Amelia. She looked up, eyes widening with pure joy. "Scarf man! I found you!" Relief crashed over him like a tidal wave. He dropped to his knees, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "Oh, kiddo, you scared me half to death." Her arms wrapped around his neck, the note fluttering to the ground. "Mommy said you were gone, but Whiskers said no." Tears stung his eyes as he held her, the world narrowing to this moment of salvation. "You can't run off like that, princess. It's dangerous." Footsteps pounded nearby. Isabella, breathless and wild-eyed, bursting into view. She froze, then rushed forward, sobs breaking free. "Amelia! Thank God!" Kieran stood, handing the child over. But Amelia reached back, linking their hands. Isabella clutched her daughter, then met Kieran's gaze, walls crumbling. "I thought I'd lost her forever." He nodded, voice thick. "You didn't. And you won't have to face this alone anymore." In that tear-streaked huddle, under the park's dim lamps, forgiveness bloomed. Isabella whispered, "I'm sorry for everything. The bills, the article, I was scared." Kieran shook his head. "I overstepped. But I meant it when I said your family." They walked back together, Amelia chattering between them, the rift mending with each step. As the adrenaline ebbed, inspiration struck Kieran like a spark in the dark. Over the coming days, as Amelia recovered her spark, he broached the idea during a quiet evening visit. "What if we turn this pain into something good? A foundation for families like yours, battling illnesses without support." Isabella's eyes lit, the seed of partnership taking root, promising a new chapter of shared purpose. The days after Amelia's daring escapade unfolded like a gentle thaw, melting the remnants of tension between Kieran and Isabella. The park reunion had mended more than just a momentary crisis. It had forged a deeper alliance, one rooted in mutual vulnerability and shared resolve. Evenings now carried a rhythm of quiet visits. Kieran stopping by the apartment with takeout or books. Amelia's giggles bridging any lingering awkwardness. It was during one such visit, as the child played on the floor with Whiskers, that Kieran's idea crystallized into words. He sat on the worn couch, watching Isabella brew tea in the tiny kitchen, her movements fluid, yet marked by the subtle fatigue that never fully left her. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice steady but laced with earnest intensity, "about what you said in the park, how hard it is for families like yours. The isolation, the bills, the endless fight. What if we change that? A foundation dedicated to supporting children with serious illnesses and their parents. Grants for treatments, emotional support groups, play therapy sessions. Real help, not just handouts." Isabella paused, teacup in hand, her blue eyes widening with a mix of surprise and intrigue. "A foundation? Kieran, that's ambitious. But why now?" He leaned forward, the CEO in him emerging with passionate precision. "Because I've seen it firsthand. With Sophia, with Noah, and now with Amelia. Money alone doesn't heal, but it can ease the burden. And you'd be perfect to co-lead it. Your background in education, your heart. It's what this needs to feel human, not corporate." She set the cup down, emotions swirling like steam from the kettle. Doubt flickered. Could she juggle this with motherhood, with survival? But the spark in his eyes, the way Amelia looked up at them both with innocent trust, ignited something within her. "Okay," she said finally, a determined smile breaking through. "Let's do it. For her. For all of them." They shook on it. A simple gesture that sealed their partnership, transforming strangers into allies in a cause greater than themselves. The foundation took shape swiftly, fueled by Kieran's resources and Isabella's vision. They named it Hope's Horizon, a nod to Amelia's stuffed companion and the promise of brighter tomorrows. Kieran handled the logistics, securing office space in a modest downtown building, assembling a small team of lawyers and fundraisers, channeling his tech empire's profits into seed funding. Isabella dove into the heart of it, designing programs like story hours in hospitals, support circles for single parents, toy drives that brought whimsy to sterile wards. Their days blurred into collaborative fervor, meetings over coffee, never at the old shop to avoid paparazzi ghosts, late nights brainstorming grant applications. Kieran marveled at her brilliance, the way she infused empathy into every plan, turning cold data into lifelines. Isabella, in turn, discovered his hidden depths. The man who could negotiate multi-million deals yet knelt to tie a child's shoelaces at their first event. As the foundation gained momentum, whispers of success rippled outward. A family receiving aid for experimental treatments, a child beaming at a customized playroom. But life, ever the unpredictable adversary, tested their budding harmony. It struck one humid afternoon, weeks into their venture. Amelia had been thriving, hair sprouting in soft wisps, energy returning in playful bursts. She attended a foundation playgroup, her laughter mingling with other kids as they built forts from blankets. Isabella watched proudly, Kieran nearby coordinating volunteers. Then, without warning, Amelia faltered mid-game, her face flushing crimson. "Mommy, hurts," she whimpered, clutching her side. Fever spiked like a venomous strike, her body convulsing in shivers. An infection, ruthless and opportunistic, exploiting the vulnerabilities left by radiation. Chaos erupted. Isabella scooped her up, voice trembling as she called for help. Kieran cleared the path, his SUV becoming an impromptu ambulance once more. The hospital blurred into focus, ER lights harsh and unforgiving. Doctors swarmed. Severe sepsis from compromised immunity, they diagnosed, ushering Amelia into isolation. Tubes snaked in, monitors beeping a frantic dirge. Isabella collapsed against the wall, sobs racking her. "Not again. I can't lose her." Kieran pulled her close, his arms a fortress against the storm. "You won't. We're in this together." He sprang into action, his network activating like a well-oiled machine, calling in top pediatric specialists from across the state, ensuring no delay in antibiotics or scans. Hours stretched into a vigil, Isabella at bedside, singing lullabies through tears. Kieran pacing halls, fielding updates, rubbing her shoulders when despair loomed. The infection raged like a wildfire, Amelia's tiny form battling with fever dreams and labored breaths. One endless night, as alarms blared from a dipping oxygen level, Kieran held Isabella as nurses stabilized her. "She's my world," she whispered, crumbling. "And now she's ours," he replied, the words slipping out unbidden, laden with truth. His support was unwavering. Fresh clothes delivered, meals forced upon her, even whiskers sanitized and placed by the bed. Amelia stirred in lucid moments, her hand seeking his. "Scarf man, stay." He'd nod, telling tales of brave horizons, his voice a steady anchor. Isabella watched, her perception shifting. This wasn't obligation. It was devotion, the kind that rebuilt shattered lives. Dawn brought turning points. The fever crested, infection retreating under aggressive care. Amelia's eyes cleared, her smile faint but genuine. "I'm still here," she murmured, echoing a resilience that humbled them both. Discharge came with cautious optimism, a new regimen, vigilant monitoring. As they left the hospital, Kieran drove not to the apartment, but toward his sprawling estate on the city's edge. "Come home with me," he said quietly, glancing at Isabella. "Just until she's stronger. There's space, staff. You won't have to do it alone." She hesitated, pride flickering, but Amelia's eager, big house tipped the scale. All right, for her. The mansion, once a echoing tomb of polished marble and silent halls, transformed under their presence. Amelia's laughter bounced off vaulted ceilings as she explored, Claiming a sunlit room with glow-in-the-dark stars, Kieran hastily installed. Staff, accustomed to his solitude, warmed to the change. Chefs whipping up nutrient-rich meals. Gardeners creating a safe play area. Evenings became family rituals. Dinners where stories flowed. Bedtime with Kieran, reading under soft lamps. Isabella navigated the opulence with grace, her touch adding warmth. Wildflowers in vases, drawings taped to fridge doors. Kieran felt alive. The ghosts of Sophia and Noah not erased, but accompanied by new light. "This feels right," he confessed one night, as they watched Amelia sleep. Isabella squeezed his hand, a silent agreement blooming. Months wove into a tapestry of healing. Amelia's curls thickening, the foundation thriving with events that drew donors and gratitude. Their partnership deepened, Isabella's compassion complementing Kieran's strategy, admiration evolving into something unspoken, profound. As spring approached, a year since that fateful coffee shop question, Kieran sensed the moment ripening. The cafe beckoned, a full circle waiting to close with a promise that would bind them forever. Spring unfurled across the city like a long-held breath released, blanketing parks in vibrant greens and coaxing blossoms from dormant branches. A year had slipped by since that fateful question in the coffee shop, a year woven with threads of healing, purpose, and unspoken affections. Amelia's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Her once bald head, now crowned with soft golden curls that bounced as she ran. Her laughter, a constant melody in Kieran's once silent home. The foundation, Hope's Horizon, had blossomed under their joint stewardship, its events drawing crowds and changing lives, a testament to their synergy. Kieran watched Isabella navigate it all with grace, her blonde hair catching sunlight during outdoor fundraisers, her voice steady in meetings where she advocated for overlooked families. Admiration had deepened into love, quiet and profound, a flame kindled in shared trials and triumphs. He knew the time had come. The cafe called like a siren song, promising closure to their beginning. Kieran planned meticulously, his CEO precision tempered by a heart newly vulnerable. He chose a Saturday morning, the air crisp with promise, mirroring that first encounter. "Let's take a walk," he suggested casually over breakfast, where Amelia smeared jam on toast and Isabella sipped coffee, her eyes warm on him. The mansion had become their haven, rooms filled with toys and drawings, evenings of board games where Kieran's competitive edge softened into playful defeats. Amelia clapped in excitement, clutching whiskers. "Park? Swings?" Isabella smiled, oblivious to his nerves. "Why not? It's a beautiful day." As they dressed, Kieran's hand trembled slightly, slipping a small velvet box into his coat pocket. A simple ring, elegant and unpretentious, symbolizing love earned through storms, not opulence. The city streets hummed with life as they strolled hand in hand, Amelia skipping between them, her energy a vibrant contrast to the frail child of yesteryear. Kieran guided them subtly, turning corners until the crooked sign of the coffee shop came into view. Isabella laughed softly, recognition dawning. "Here? Wow, it's been forever." The bell tinkled as they entered, the aroma of fresh brews and pastries enveloping them like an old embrace. Patrons murmured at tables, steam curling from mugs, the window seat empty, as if fate had reserved it. They claimed it, Kieran across from Isabella, Amelia in the middle, her legs swinging just as before. "This is where it started," Isabella mused, her fingers tracing the tabletop. A tired little girl and a kind stranger. Amelia's eyes widened in memory. "Can I sit here?" "That's what I said," she giggled, patting whiskers. Kieran nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "How could I forget? That question changed everything." He stood slowly, heart pounding like thunder in his chest, and moved around the table. Isabella frowned in confusion. Kieran, what are you? He dropped to one knee, the velvet box emerging like a hidden treasure. The cafe hushed, eyes turning their way, but the world narrowed to the three of them. He opened it, the ring catching light. A solitaire diamond set in platinum, modest yet radiant, echoing their journey's simplicity. Isabella, he began, voice steady despite the tremor within. From the moment Amelia asked if she could sit here, you both walked into my life and shattered the walls I'd built around my heart. I was lost, haunted by Sophia and Noah, convinced love was a ghost I'd never touch again. But you showed me otherwise. With every hospital night, every laugh in the park, every step in building our foundation, you've reminded me how to hope, how to live. Tears glistened in her eyes, her hand flying to her mouth. Amelia watched wide-eyed, sensing the gravity. You've given me a family again, he continued, glancing at the girl who beamed back. Amelia, your bravery inspires me daily. And Isabella, your strength, your kindness. It's you I want by my side, through every storm and sunrise. Will you marry me? The words hung in the air, charged with a year's worth of unspoken promises. Isabella's tears spilled freely, joy and disbelief mingling. She nodded vigorously, unable to speak at first, then whispered, "Yes." "Oh, Kieran, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, and rose to pull her into an embrace. The cafe erupted in applause, the barista cheering from behind the counter, but they heard none of it, lost in the moment, foreheads touching, breaths sinking. Amelia squealed, throwing her arms around their legs. "Mommy said yes. You're my daddy now, for real." Kieran knelt again, hugging her tight. "That's right, princess. Forever." As the cheers faded, they sat once more, the table now an altar of new beginnings. Sunlight streamed through the window, bathing them in golden warmth, as if blessing their union. Isabella admired the ring, her free hand entwined with his. "I never imagined this, us, here." Kieran smiled, the weight of grief lifted, replaced by boundless possibility. "Neither did I, but fate knew better." Amelia, oblivious to the depth but feeling the joy, declared, "Ice cream to celebrate." Laughter bubbled up, light and free. Outside, the world moved on, commuters rushing, birds wheeling overhead. But inside these four walls, time paused to honor a promise forged in kindness. Kieran Hayes, once a widower adrift, had found his anchor. Isabella Grant, the resilient single mother, had discovered a partner in every sense. And Amelia, the brave little spark, had woven them into a family unbreakable. As they stepped out hand in hand, the bell tinkling farewell, the echo of that first question lingered. "Can I sit here?" It had been more than a request. It was the key to eternity. In the years that followed, their story became legend at Hope's horizon, a reminder that love often arrives not with fanfare, but with a simple seat offered in a quiet cafe. Thank you for joining us on this heartwarming journey through Kieran, Isabella, and Amelia's story. A tale that began with a simple question and blossomed into a promise of forever. We hope it touched your heart as much as it did ours. Please share your thoughts and where you're listening from in the comments, and rate this touching tale from 0 to 10. Until next time, keep your heart open. You never know who might ask, "Can I sit here?" See you soon.